Thank you everyone for joining us tonight as we present a preview of Module 16-B of the Weight Management Certification. Tonight I'm excited to introduce our presenter, James LaValle. James LaValle is a nationally recognized clinical pharmacist, author, educator, industry consultant, and clinical practitioner, pioneer in the field of natural therapeutics. One of the nation's top influencers in legitimizing integrative medicine, LaValle trains thousands of physicians and other healthcare professionals each year on the application of natural therapies in their contemporary practices. He was named one of the 50 most influential pharmacists by American Druggist magazine and the 2011 Clinician of the Year by the Natural Products Association. LaValle founded Metabolic Enterprises to develop and launch his proprietary metabolic assessment platform for practitioners. LaValle is also the author of more than 20 books and ebooks, including the most recently released publication, Your Blood Never Lies, as well as his bestseller, Cracking the Metabolic Code and Nutritional Costs of Drugs. Due to the large attendance tonight, I'm asking that you use your chat button if you do have any questions, and we will address them at the end of the webinar. Dr. LaValle, I will turn the webinar over to you.
Great, thanks a lot, Lindsay. Yeah, so this area, I think for me, it's so important because, you know, we're just not getting it done on weight loss with individuals, and I think there's a lot of reasons why. It's a struggle because of keeping their craving patterns on tact. It's a struggle because, you know, people don't understand even how to count their carbohydrates yet. It's a struggle because we've got a population of, you know, in the U.S., 50% of our population is diabetic or insulin resistant. There's all kinds of issues that swirl around this problem of weight management. And the real goal of this program is to kind of give you a 4-part series as to how do you manage the person. We got a great Module A. Ben Gonzalez did a great job discussing what he does in his practice. Anthony Carpasso, you know, another doc who has had very successful weight loss practices, and you know, we just want to build on the fact that, you know, we have to learn more and more how to address the needs of individuals so that they can manage their weight over a lifetime. I mean, all of us have seen the issues around, you know, people try doing an Atkins diet, they go low carb, they go ketogenic, then they fall off the bandwagon. And they fall off that bandwagon a lot of times, you know, the stress overcomes them, they don't have enough dopamine, and before you know it, they're back on the eating the carbs and the starches and rubbing the cookies on their head in order to feel better. And so we really want to get, you know, this understanding. And, you know, this isn't a new concept. I remember looking at the NIH's plan for obesity, strategic document for obesity, which basically said leave no stone unturned in fighting the epidemic of obesity. And really what they said is that conventional approaches, you know, still, you know, totally focusing on calories in and calories out, it's not working. And the other piece I'll tell you is, because I've got a contract research organization that we're doing work with now, where, you know, we're evaluating people on weight loss, and you know what, people have calorie distortion. They don't realize they're taking in 4,000 and 5,000 calories, and basically they're sedentary 23 hours out of their day, if they're lucky, on that 24th hour that they're deciding to do a little bit of exercise. And so there are so many issues that are being left as a problem, you know, whether it's environmental intoxication. I did choose a case study tonight that is probably a super challenging case study that I think will help highlight the issues surrounding the modern epidemic of weight loss issues today, and in particular just improving body composition, right? We want people to maintain lean mass, we want them to lose fat mass, and I hope you enjoy the case study that we're going to do. You know, just had to, you know, highlight these facts. I mean, these were just came out. And I didn't reference everything for this particular talk because it's just an introductory talk, but sure, you know, basically, and during our courses, if you guys have seen me, you know I reference things heavily, but 50% of the U.S. population today diabetic or insulin resistant. Actually, the data is 38% insulin resistant and 12% are diabetic. 78% of people are overweight, 38% are obese. We got 1 in 3 adults with hypertension, 1 in 2 adults over 50 are hypertension. That means endothelial dysfunction, and that means, you know, stress is overcoming them, and they're having a lot of metabolic disruption. So these are not, you could stay in business the rest of your life helping people to manage their weight, and when you manage their weight, you manage a lot of their chronic illnesses that take place. $60 billion annually on weight loss. 5% of people who attempt weight loss are successful 2 years out. We have to get to the point of understanding the metabolic factors contributing to weight gain, and it's critical for treating the overweight and the obese patient. I can tell you right now, where a lot of the data is pointing towards is the issue around dopamine and reward and satisfaction issues. And I have to agree with it. When I reviewed, there was a weight loss chain of about 35 weight loss centers. They had 1 million patient live chart visits. And when I interviewed all the nurse practitioners, they said, what's the #1 reason people come back to you? Because they were clinics that were doing, they were doing phentermine, and they were also, so they're doing a stimulant, but they were teaching proper diet, and they were getting people to go to exercise class, and they were trying to do a complete program for people, and they were still getting all these failure rates. And I said, well, why do people come back after you fail? And the #1 thing that resonated was the fact that, they just said they like the way they feel when they're on the stimulant, that they have energy and that their brain's more awake. Yeah, so when you're chronically inflamed and you have neuroinflammation and you're overweight and your dopamine pulls down, you feel sluggish, you're overweight, your brain's not thinking quickly, and nobody wants to live that way. And it's also evidenced by what happened with the ephedra, right? 40% of the people that took ephedra didn't take it for weight loss. They took it to be a stimulant to get their energy up. The last point of evidence on this is the amount of caffeination that's taking place right now with people. And if you look across the board, most of the diet pills that are out there over the counter that people, use your thermogenic, use a thermogenic, they always have a stimulant component in them because you're basically kicking the can of that person's hypothalamus and higher brain centers, trying to get them to feel alert and act, therefore, as an anorectic. There's a lot of disturbances that relate to fat gain. Obviously, nutritional deficiencies, one of the biggest ones being magnesium. Functional magnesium deficiencies considered to be the #1 reason from a nutrition standpoint of increased risk for metabolic syndrome, obesity, and type 2 diabetes. Obviously, there's a carb and sugar intake. If you look at the Journal of Sports Medicine about 4 months ago, they said America's not fat because they don't exercise enough. America's fat because they take in too many carbs and sugars. That's simplistic. We know that there's other things that are affecting that insulin receptor and glucose regulation, but they did make a big point. Think of it, the Journal for Sports Medicine, the bastion of telling people they need to move more, is saying the diet's out of balance. Of course, the next is stress and uncontrolled craving patterns. I happen to think that's one of the biggest reasons that people have trouble. Sleep and cortisol, obviously, when you don't sleep, your cortisol levels tend to go up. As your cortisol is going up, you store fat easier, your blood sugar gets out of balance. When you don't sleep, you make more thyroid-binding globulin. That binds up your thyroid hormone, so you get busy giving people thyroid. I'm going to give you T4 and T3. You give them T4 and T3, and lo and behold, their free T3 actually doesn't do anything. It doesn't go up, and you're going, how can that be? I'm giving you T3, right? And so low metabolic performance from the thyroid, intoxication. Obviously, there's a lot of information coming out on organophosphates and pesticides affecting insulin receptor function and leading to obesity, also affecting, obviously, the microbiome, which is kind of one of the more popular things being discussed now. And then, of course, it's sex hormones. And imbalances in sex hormones lead to weight gain. Look at the middle-aged man with low testosterone and the big belly and the insulin resistance, right? And then food intolerances and allergies play a role. Inflammation, there's social and community cues, so behavioral changes that have to occur. And then it can be something as simple as drug use, right? So, you got somebody on Seroquel and they gained 30 pounds. They didn't eat 30 pounds on them. They somehow, that drug had an effect on the HP axis, and they gained weight. We've all seen it happen with people where they gain weight when they get on certain drugs. I mean, oral contraceptives, another one where people gain weight. What are some core lab values? I know that we'll go over. I mean, we're big on getting the lab values. I think if you can get, rounded in these basic lab values, then, if you want to do more avant-garde things like food panel testing, whether you're doing complement IgG testing or, whatever other do an organic acid urine to kind of maybe look at their metabolic profile, but you got to get these basic ones down. A waking cortisol in serum, I still like. 4-point salivary, a urinary cortisol, or hair cortisol all have validity, but one thing's for sure, most people report being overcommitted in their lives when you talk to them, I'm sure, and that overcommitment translates to cortisol, which translates to weight gain and struggling with managing their insulin receptors and their thyroid function. And the one thing we don't appreciate, of course, is the fact that, when you elevate cortisol, that it triggers more sympathetic drive from the brain, which then, in turn causes problems in the enteric nervous system of the gut, triggering immune activation and inflammation. Obviously, looking at T4, T3, free and total. One of the reasons I like doing free and total T4 and T3 is because sometimes when we just look at free T4 and free T3, we don't realize that they're making plenty of thyroid hormone. But they may be making a lot of thyroid-binding globulin in this time. And that, of course, is binding all the thyroid hormone you're trying to give. And I know all of you have experienced it, as I mentioned earlier, that you give them, thyroid hormone, and you don't always see the numbers go up in the free fraction. You'll see TSH change, but you won't necessarily see a lot of changes. Not in everyone. I know some people get benefit. And then obviously we have to look for things like antibodies to thyroid. So TPO, thyroid globulin antibodies, just to find out if the immune system's involved in the process. I love when people do blood glucose as fasting, and I'm big on people doing a glucometer 1 hour post-meal. The #1 reason for plaquing of your arteries is an elevated 1 hour postprandial glucose. Blood sugar should not be over 140. If they're over 140, I've either eaten too much carbohydrate and sugar load, or I've created an inflammatory response due to a food intolerance. This is a great learning tool for people when they start to understand, when they check their blood sugar, oh, I ate that amount of food and my blood sugar went too high. It's important. Insulin, I love getting I love a postprandial insulin, but if even a fasting insulin, you pick up a lot. Getting our red blood cell magnesium and chromium, especially a red blood cell magnesium. It is so rare for me to find someone with adequate red blood cell magnesium status. Even though it's not the perfect magnesium, probably an ionized magnesium, maybe even more close to total body stores. But an RBC mag is something you can easily get, better than a serum mag, because remember, your serum is going to protect your magnesium status at all costs. So you may melt down bone in order to protect your magnesium pools, and so just realize that. And then of course looking at things like monocytes and eosinophil percents. Is the immune system turned on? Is there some inflammation that's taking place in the gut? Are they allergic? I can give you a good example in this case study will lend itself to this. And then obviously looking at things like triglycerides and sex hormones are important. And there's others. You can extend this down to looking at, what do we need to look at toxic metals? Do we need to look at things like leptin? There's obviously other things you can do. But if you get this picture of basic metabolic parameters down, it can go a long way in learning how to control these values through your prescription, your personalized prescription for them. It can really go a long way. And this is just kind of that answer to inflammation and obesity, right? So when we all know this, when you're obese, you make more interleukin-1, and interleukin-1 perpetuates the inflammatory markers that lead to insulin resistance and the inability of the insulin receptor to fire correctly. And so when people are overweight or obese, they make more inflammatory compounds, and we have to get those inflammatory compounds down regulated, or we can't get the insulin receptors to start to function. And in the end, that's what you're really trying to get to. Whether you look at toxins or mineral status or the effect of thyroid hormone, when thyroid goes low, less insulin receptors express. When cortisol goes high, insulin receptors become dormant. When you eat 6 times a day because your blood sugar is crashing, you trigger cortisol, right? So it's important to realize that all these things are kind of swirling around in this individual sitting in front of you who's frustrated due to the weight loss. When we did our program at Lifetime Fitness, 200 and some thousand people, and it was just deemed weight loss is more than calories in and calories out. We got a tremendous amount of success just by looking at these baseline other areas, nutrient deficiencies, cortisol, thyroid, detoxification cycles, diet, gut, and people did very well. And of course, visceral fat, you're going to get a great talk by Dr. Carnahan on visceral fat and gut immune issues that occur with it, and that we get alterations in growth hormone and IGF-1 as people gain more and more visceral fat. So, maintaining lean mass, very, very much a key indicator for health as we age. And of course, as this adipose tissue is increasing, we get increases in appetite, we get alterations in immunity triggering more interleukin-6 and TNF-alpha. You get the renin-angiotensin issues get triggered, leading to elevated blood pressure, right? You see a lot of folks, the pre-diabetic, pre-hypertensive, once again, 50% of the population, diabetic or insulin resistant, 1 in 3 adults, hypertensive. That renin-angiotensin system is so highly influenced by adipose tissue and the adipokines that get produced from adipose tissue that are signaled during inflammation. And then, of course, lipid metabolism. So looking at things like lipid particle numbers are huge in finding out how insulin resistant someone is, right? Because cortisol, thyroid, and insulin really model that lipid. And you're going to find out whether you're making small little BBs or big fat beach balls for your LDL cholesterols. And that's so key to really looking at successful management. And then, of course, insulin sensitivity. You turn down as your adipose tissue is increasing, and your adipokines, one of the adipokines is you make more resistant, and you make less adiponectin. And so the insulin receptors get, literally become less sensitive. And, I think we've already, beat this one up a little bit, but, there's a lot of relationship that inflammation is a key marker for how we're going to get people to be successful with their weight management. It's what I think when you starve people, when people starve themselves down, like, what's abundantly clear, people are no longer into deprivation, and they'll actually they'll think it's better for them to have more weight and not be deprived, where in fact, if we turn down their inflammation signaling, and their receptors start to function like they should, in particular their insulin receptors, which are very sensitive to inflammatory processes in the body, their demand for calories goes down, right? Because if your insulin receptors are effective, you're making 38 molecules of ATP for every mole of glucose. When you become ineffective, you only make 2 molecules of ATP for every mole of glucose. So basically, you become an SUV, or a gas-sucking, engine. And that is really the key in insulin resistance, diabetes, and actually eventually cancer, is that we start to induce a much less efficient way of making energy. So we've all had the diabetic in front of us that says, I know what you told me to do, but my body told me I need to drink that Coke, or I need to eat those crackers. And it's because they literally are not able to suck the energy out of that food. Instead, it's very inefficient. They make a lot of metabolic byproducts, a lot of lactate, lactic acid dehydrogenase goes up in these individuals, and they end up, I can't exercise as much, my muscles are tired, I've got fatigue, and I'm not making energy. So in the end, what we're really trying to do through this whole course is create an environment where we understand and can tell people that, effective weight loss, effective fat management, effective BMI control over a lifetime is way more than calories in and calories out. But I got to tell you, I used to be the guy that would tell people, oh, don't worry about it, just eat healthy food, here, eat more vegetables, and try to not get them to, focus on calories. Over the last couple of years, we've got another 100,000 person installation we're doing on weight loss coming up in June. We're teaching people about calories again, because we just found out when we do surveys on them, they overeat. They don't understand calories because they're being served so many biggie meals. And so there is a caloric need. Yes, if everybody ate 12 servings of vegetables a day, it'd go a long way towards improving their BMI and improving their lean mass to fat mass ratios. However, when we do surveys on people, they're not there yet. They still end up hitting the starch because it's quick. So what strategies are you going to use to teach them? That's what this session is going to be at. Whether we're giving a carb, how do you count your carbs handout, to what strategies can you use to give people to maybe block carbohydrate absorption while they're learning how to reduce their calories. Very novel ingredient called phase 2. It's been around a while. There's even human studies and there's even FDA claims associated with it on weight management, and it's not a stimulant, but yet we're not using it. So it's a very interesting compound that we'll be able to detail. So weight management really includes counting carbs, watching sugars, and eating foods that are immune-friendly, specific to your lifestyle needs, meaning some people are more active or less active. Some people do better on a little more starch than a little less. Some people, when they eat high protein, they end up, getting thick. And it's understanding those nuances that help you to be more effective in guiding them. I'm really big on getting people to understand food intolerance, and so we're big on teaching elimination diet protocol and being able to get people to understand how can you do a food elimination program. If you're big on doing testing, you can do food allergy panels. I think sometimes they work pretty good, and I think all of you agree that sometimes the information comes back a little off. But do I like using it as a tool still? Absolutely. Just some speaker highlights, and this is not the whole staff. We've got a whole group of really talented people that are going to be speaking. But Dr. Hunton is board certified in obesity medicine. I think it was important for us to get a board certified obesity medicine doc to speak. She runs a successful practice. Weight loss is a big piece of her practice, and we're using her in this part of the module because when we get to the third installation of the certificate for weight management, obesity medicine includes what do you do with your bariatric cases. There's a lot of people getting procedures. What's the alterations that occur now because the mechanics of their digestion are different, and understanding neuroendocrine solutions and what's going on. Nat Jones, he's a PharmD, works with PCCA, and Nat is absolutely a wealth of knowledge, just not on compounding solutions, but strategies that are practical that can be deployed. I mean, he's just seriously a gifted pharmacist. And then we've got Dr. Jill Carnahan. If you haven't heard Dr. Carnahan speak, really great on gut. She's going to go through all the microbiome, the gut, glucose, glucose intestinal peptides, so GLP-1, ghrelin, leptin, what's going on with the gut when it's skewed, visceral fat, what's the adipokines. I think you're going to really enjoy what she's got to offer, and Dr. Carnahan just gives really good practical advice. I got the pleasure to listen to her speak a few months ago in an event, and I think she's just a real wealth of knowledge. And of course, we'll round this out with folks that will provide a tremendous amount of information for you, just like last time in this specialty area that are in the trenches helping people lose weight every day. And so I think you're going to find that these folks are going to be really helpful. So I wanted to make sure I keep this on time, and certainly I'm open for questions afterwards, but this is a great case that details just how complex weight loss can be. This was a person that came to me about 4 months ago now. I think it was right before the end of the year when I first saw her. She came into my practice. She was 5'4", 154 pounds. Blood pressure here 120/80, but medicated. MTHFR positive. And here was what her medical history was. And I wrote it down exactly from what she had on her intake with me. She diagnosed Lyme, and had been through Lyme treatment. Heavy metal toxicity. She brought in a stack of what we call metabolic and functional tests. I mean a stack. Hypothyroid, actually treated with Natrethroid. She had told me she had been treated for Candida multiple times. She had Epstein-Barr virus, and she had environmental and food intolerances. Why did she come to me? Fatigue and weight loss. Those were her two reasons for coming in. Here's her list of current when she came in, what she was taking. So she was on Natrethroid, Magmalate, Curcumin, CoQ10, Adrenergize, which is an adrenal product, DHEA, alpha-lipoic acid, Neo40, of course, nitric oxide, circulation, digestive enzymes, probiotics, omega-3 fatty acids, B-complex, Nepronol, vitamin, DMSA, 3 days per week. Metaclear would basically are an ultra clear Metaclear type product. They have, this is the actual product that she listed, so that's why I put it down. She was on a fulvic acid product for detox along with iodine, 10% progesterone prescription with no estrogen, and then a Chinese herbal combination for her Lyme, in addition to taking Cemento. And then I think she moved to a South American herb combination, which I'll detail later. This is her initial interview. She's been through numerous treatments from practitioners for Lyme, toxic metals, and other complaints. She complains that I just feel so puffy. So she felt puffy. She never met a carb she didn't like, but has tried to strictly avoid it other than at night under high stress. And she had a daughter that had just moved away from home and was trying to get her settled in. She'd recently had high stress in December. So she's on a modified low-carb diet, including food allergy restrictions. And she was actually very good about them. When my dietitian interviewed her, she said she was pretty good about her diet. She trains 6 days a week, working out at 5:30 a.m. in a boot camp that lasts about an hour and a half, 5 days a week. In my opinion, she was overtraining for where her immune system was at, and she feels like she's just pushing a thought through Jell-O when I asked her. Her short-term memory is beginning to worry her. She still has joint and connective tissue pain. Her tongue is coated in yellow, feels bloated, and reports being under a great deal of stress, and her blood pressure at times being slightly elevated. So this is a person that, she can't get the weight to move. She's doing the detox. She's doing the Lyme treatment. She's doing the workout. She's tracking her foods. And you know what? She can't get the weight to budge, and she's incredibly frustrated. And she's actually getting frustrated at how many things she has to take. That was her other complaint. One of the reasons she came to me was she wanted to see if she could cut down on what she was taking. Okay. Oh, there it is. So what's the treatment plan? One was reduce the amount of supplements. I did give her lymphatic drainage. She was taking the DMPS 3 times a week, and nobody was giving her anything to help the toxins to move out of her connective tissue. And one of the big things she was complaining of was consistent connective tissue discomfort. We put her on just straight chromium, a milligram and a half a day to wake up her insulin receptors, and we also put her on cyclohysprozinc, which is a amino acid peptide bonded zinc, which has been shown to reduce hemoglobin A1C and improve insulin receptor signaling. We put her on a Cas-Claw berberine combination, mainly berberine to improve the tight junctions, and mainly the Cas-Claw to decrease inflammation in the gut. We put her on adrenal cortex extract, 2 in the morning and 2 at noon. Put her on a Relora and Evodia combination to dampen her stress and reduce her nighttime craving pattern. The nighttime craving pattern is indicative of too awake of a brain during a day, meaning she was loading too much stress. Part of that could have been due to the 5:30 a.m. wake-up call with the hour and a half workout 5 days a week. And the other part of it is she was under a lot of stress. We also added some carnitine to try to get her thyroid to function better, kept her on her Adrenergize. We gave her RG3 nasal spray to improve her memory. We started her on oligo, copper, gold, silver, and manganese copper. Oligo, copper, gold, silver, and manganese copper. Copper, gold, silver is the oligotherapy it's used for people that are allergic, and she was complaining of consistent fatigue throughout her day, kind of a Lyme complaint, right? And the fibromyalgia type complaint. And we put her on manganese copper for the connective tissue and because of the chronic yeast issues. And then we put her on some mechanopurins to get her dopamine up, and then told her to continue on her Lyme and Cremata and Cemento, her Lyme protocol. But that represented knocking down about 50% of her product list. She was ecstatic. And let's see what happens. Joint pain was gone. Connective tissue discomfort gone, and puffiness gone. Well, why was that? She wasn't moving toxins out of her bodies, guys, and so she thought that the weight gain was all that she wasn't moving fat, when in fact what it was is she was retaining water. She was puffy because she was in a chronic pro-inflammatory state. She wasn't moving those toxins out of her body. She had numbness and tingling in her limbs. That significantly got better, about 80%. Her mind is starting to clear and feel more alert. Her post-exercise midday fatigue rate went from a 10 at start to a 3 to a 4. She was also able to go on vacation and do a lot of walking. They went to Vancouver, and she actually did a lot of walking and was able to do it without gaining any soreness at all. However, no weight loss. So we got the histamine to go away. We got the numbness and tingling got better. The connective tissue discomfort is better. The joint pain actually gone, but yet the weight didn't move. Even the fatigue was better. But you know what? She wasn't happy, and she wasn't happy because we hadn't got the weight to move yet. Now, when I see people with chronic neuroinflammatory problems like Lyme and toxic metals, I know that that affects the HPA axis, and it can influence her ability to access fat. And so we thought about what to do with her, and so this is what we did in her case, because she had already tried caloric restriction, she's already on thyroid, she is already training her tail off, and she wasn't getting anywhere. So in her third visit, we gave her HCG, and we did a 200-unit lipotab twice a day to reset the neuroinflammatory influence on the hypothalamic fat storage. We put her on an 800-calorie program and allowed her to go to 900 calories, in addition to keeping her on her supplementation. And she lost 6 pounds in 10 days. It's the first time she was able to lose weight in her first 10 days of doing this program. It was the first time she had lost any weight in almost 3 years. And so we're continuing to monitor her now, but she's ecstatic over her changes in body composition. She's not losing lean mass. We're tracking her body comp changes. We use ultrasound. We have DEXA scan at the office as well, but we typically will use ultrasound to track body fat because it's easy to use. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the kind of the portable ultrasounds. They're kind of slick. But this is that complex case. Not everybody's going to be as complex as her, but I know you have people like this that are walking in that have got environmental toxin challenges. They're not losing weight. They're holding on to their toxins because no one's thought about doing drainage or using things that will help move toxins out of the lymph and connective tissue, and therefore be able to facilitate detoxification, reduce the amount of inflammatory signaling that's going on. Because remember we talked about earlier discussion that inflammation prevents weight loss, and it's the real reason I picked her, and literally picked her yesterday as my case that I was going to do for you guys, because she kind of embodies a lot of the aspects of what's going on with people today, right? They got these low-grade chronic infections, they got environmental toxins, they're stressed out, their guts are leaky, and it's not just as simple as, oh, just eat less calories. Now, in some people, that is the case, and during this weekend, we'll bring that up. That there are people that you teach them how to reduce their starch. As they're reducing their starch, you give them a carb blocker, you activate their insulin receptor, you dial in their thyroid, you put them on some anti-candida stuff, and bam, they're losing weight, and they feel fantastic. They lose 5 pounds of water, and they're dynamite. One of the big secrets I always say is, one of the things you can do, weigh somebody in the morning, weigh somebody at night. If they've gained more than 4 pounds from morning to night, they're probably eating foods that they're sensitive to. And that's that histaminic response that's making them hold water, just like when they get a bee sting and that tissue holds water, right? It's edemic or erythemic that's happening in their body. And I've seen it not once, 1,000 times. So people will drop, I dropped 6 pounds in the first week. Yeah, you're not as allergic. You're not as inflammatory. You're not as histaminic. You're repairing the gut. The leukotrienes aren't releasing all those inflammatory cytokines anymore out in the gut. So she, I think, is a perfect kind of distillation of one of the tougher people that are out there. Now, we'll retrain her. This will be a 21-day program. We'll retrain her up to about 1,200 calories a day, teach her how to do post-workout nutrition so that the exercises she's doing are good, and we actually dialed her workouts down while she lost this weight. So she worked out about 70% less and was able to begin to lose weight. And this is just a little example of I think the things that you'll learn throughout the weight loss certification course. It's learning the environmental aspect, the adrenal aspects, the gut aspects, the thyroid aspects, managing insulin receptors? What are the nutrition deficiencies that are commonly a problem? You know, what hormone issues are out there? And I really think it'll help you to get insight into your tougher cases and help you to achieve a more stable and successful weight management and fat loss management program. I know for me, it's the thing I do that I get a ton of referrals, and I just get one person to lose weight successfully and keep it off. That's it for tonight. And I welcome any questions, and we can take it from there. I think we're done right on time. We are.
Thank you so much. I do have some questions here for you. Which food sensitivity panels do you like? Do you value more of neutrophil type tests versus IgG tests?
You know, it's interesting. There's two tests that we predominantly use. We use actually I'm gonna say three, and I'm gonna tell you all of them. I still get confused sometimes on the results I get versus what I get reporting clinically in our practice. And I got 2 dietitians full-time interviewing people. We know what people are reacting to when they tell us they're blowing up when they eat something. I do the IgG complement test. I like it. Insurance still pays for it, so I like that test. That's by Dunwoody Labs. I like the LEAP MRT test. One of my dietitians is real favorable to that, so I allow her to do that. And I got to tell you, the one I used for a lot of years and was just happy with was the ELISA IgG and IgE test, and I got great. I get good results. It adds an extra piece to the puzzle. I always end up finding some foods that I wouldn't have eliminated by a strict elimination diet. And therefore that provides value. But what I try to tell people is it's not an exact science. You're not going to get 100%. But boy, if you could find an extra 5 or 6 foods that you're regularly eating that are just triggering inflammation in you, man, you got paid dirt there. And so those are the tests that I'll use in practice. I use the IgG complement, the LEAP MRT, and then the IgE testing. And I'll do slit therapy with them too. So we'll do sublingual immunotherapies if we're cleaning people up and it doesn't seem to be quite enough. I had a nephrotic ground-based syndrome case that we did the immunotherapy on her, and it cleaned up all her nephrotic syndrome stuff that was going on.
Great. I have another question. What is the HCG protocol?
It's just the HCG diet. It's just it's literally you give them you load them up 3 days on kind of higher fat foods, and then for 21 days they're on 2 meals. We don't do the 500 calorie one. We tend to do 800 to 900, and it's basically 2 meals a day of lean protein and vegetables. So it's a very low carb, low fat 21-day program. They shed a lot of fat mass. We actually did a white paper on this. There's a poster board presentation for 4th-year physicians at the University of Cincinnati College of Medicine back when I was in Cincinnati. And we did see a significant saving of lean mass when we did HCG versus a placebo alone of an equicaloric diet. There's a lot more lean mass loss, which is traditionally happens when you start to cut the calories too low. So you put them on that HCG for 21 days, and then you introduce food back slowly over time. But there's a full protocol to it. We actually, in Module A, we went through a complete how do you do it program. We'll obviously touch on it in Module B, but in the 4th module of the certificate program, we kind of pull it all together, and you get all those tools. But it's a little more that I can go through in in 5 minutes. Some of the things to keep in mind is that people are losing a lot of fat. You got to protect the gallbladder. I like putting people on things like artichoke. No matter what fat loss program you're doing with people, protect their liver because they get gallstones, right, when they lose fat quickly. So, artichoke extract or artichoke and milk thistle, and there's plenty of companies that have artichoke and milk thistle, right? I mean, it's not like it's rocket science. But just the simple thing of like colorectic herb like artichoke helps to process the cholesterol, process the fat, reduce the incidence of those gallstones forming. And so that's a hot tip on it, no matter which type of diet you're going to put somebody on.
Great. Could you reiterate the lymphatic drainage protocol?
Well, the big thing is the reason I use lymph drainage, and it's kind of more of a traditional, when I learned from my naturopaths and kind of the Hemabodens and, Baden-Baden in Germany during Medicine Week, they're big on teaching in homotoxicology to liberate toxins, to use tinctures from botanicals or low-dose homeopathy that help to stimulate the movement of toxins out of tissues. One of the big ones that we don't address all that well is the ground matrix, right? It's the connective tissue and the collagen, which is very active in signaling things like metalloproteinases, like MMP9, which we know is associated with chronic inflammation in connective tissue. And so I use different lymphatic drainage remedies that I will put people on to facilitate moving toxins out of their tissues. You'll have people that you start them on detoxifying and they'll go, oh my God, I got so sore from it, or I feel puffy from it, or my kidneys, my back feels like it's aching. That's when you know you need drainage formulations. And so it's very simple. I mean, all I added to this woman was a lymphatic called a lymphliquescence from Professional Health Products, and I had her do 5 droppers of it twice a day, and I added a connective tissue drainage. It's called connective tissue liquescence. She did twice a day, and that was enough to facilitate moving those toxins out of her and to get the soreness out of her, because I actually took down the amount of supplements she was taking and got her less sore and achy. And we go during the course, what do you use? We go through that stuff.
Fantastic. If there are any other questions, please use your chat button. Module B will be presented live in sunny San Diego on June 23rd through the 25th. Come join the expert faculty, learn how to implement a successful weight management program into your practice, ask questions, learn the latest protocols, work through patient cases, and build your therapeutic toolbox. Dr. LaValle, I don't see any more questions coming through. Do you have any final comments?
Yeah, I mean, I do. I mean, we're building on this weight loss certification course, and every one of these modules is packed with information that's going to be relevant for you, and being able to apply it and solving the problems of weight management and appetite and moving fat and restoring HPA axis and HPA-T axis functionality into individuals, because that's really what I'm finding where it's at. If I can't get the communication of the brain to the body and the gut, I'm not getting somewhere with somebody. And so you're going to learn strategies from really people that are in the trenches with weight loss and have successful practices every day. And I just invite you to come out and enjoy 3 days of learning, case studies, and being able to ask the tough questions. I know a lot of you struggle with this. I mean, it's a tough piece, and you know what? There's no shortage of people out there needing help.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Dr. LaValle, and thank you everyone for joining us. If you have any questions, call your education advisor. You can call me directly. My name is Lindsay, and my direct line is 561-777-6807. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great night.